So how do we envision doing it? We want to be the regional hub for NGO certification, development, and knowledge exchange. For that, we've identified 4 key services that the NGO initiative will start with, and they are organizational certification, convening platform, training and capacity building, and the last one is knowledge resource center. So let me tell you a little bit about why we started those. We've realized a lot of the NGOs we work with and we've seen in the market, and part of the research we've done, exists and operate without any clear criteria on what standards should they work on, what is the right way of managing your financials, is there any standard or process or agreed on best practice or a common practice on strategic planning or on community needs assessment or on reporting or on managing your internal resources and assets and related policies and procedures for them. So the first part of it was setting those standards and creating that benchmark for NGOs to say these are the minimum operational, governance, administrative, and strategic benchmarks or criteria to work with. If you are able to fulfill those criteria, you're operating at a certain standard that we can say you're sound, you have a sound policies, sound processes, sound decision making. The second part is the convening platform where thousands of NGOs, and we've seen so many of them working in the same community, sometimes on the same issue, but they don't know each other, or they don't interact, or they don't share lessons learned or identify what are the key issues. Some of them have done a survey, then a few days later another one comes in and does another survey with different set of questions, or sometimes the same set of questions, without understanding of what are the others doing. And so the convening platform, the purpose of the convening platform is to bring those NGOs together and share lessons learned and bridge the gap between donors, communities, NGOs, and the parties they're working with, so that we can all come together as a go-to place for the NGO sector. So let's talk about the first one before we go into the training and knowledge resources, which my colleague Noor will talk more about. So, organization certification. It covers 4 main categories, but there are 10 standards. They are under strategic, governance, administrative, and operational. They are assessing NGOs against evidence-based criteria. So it's not an opinion-based type of an assessment. We're not saying, yes, we like the way you're doing strategy or not. There are evidence, there's a set of clear, objective criteria that we're measuring, documents and proofs of achieving certain principles, certain policies, and the ability to implement what they have set. And once we are able to measure those in an objective manner, we're able to give them a certain score and to certify those NGOs to say they meet those minimum standards, and then they are up to a certain standard of work. And when they have certain gaps, our role is not to blame and shame. Our role is to actually empower them and to tell them these are the places where you can improve and you can enhance your work further to go up to standards or to improve the performance here or there. So let's talk about the standards. The first one is governance and strategic planning. That's the core of any organization, is figuring out where are they heading, how do they set their strategy, how do they make the major decisions of governing their organization, the elections, the board, who says, who approves what budgets and what programs. The whole governance of that organization, along with its strategic planning, is our first standard. The second one is financial management, and that's where the biggest fraud and problems and mismanagement of resources happens. It's in the finances. So our aim here is to set clear criteria to minimize and to give a certain sense of assurance to donors and to partners and to the governing body that whatever they're doing it in a financially sound manner. There's no fraud, there's no misuse of resources and donor money or beneficiary-oriented funds. The third is risk management and compliance. And with the ever-changing and complicated regulations and compliance criteria of donors and ministries and different donor agencies and co-financing, the compliance requirements are becoming much more complex and much more demanding than years back. And so there's a critical part of being able to manage this compliance and be able to comply and manage the risks that you might identify so that you are able to secure more funding and you are able to work properly within the structures and the systems needed by the donor agencies, by the government, by all the decision-making bodies or legal entities. The fourth is the legal management, whereby we focus on ensuring that you have all the legal paperwork, you're submitting your formal documentation annually, you have all the right legal procedures and approvals, elections and all of that in place. The fifth is community centricity, and that's the core of why NGOs are there, is to serve and to help the communities themselves. And so community centricity standard here is a set of criteria and a way of looking at the NGOs of how do they do their programming, how do they identify their needs, when do they choose to work in this community or that problem or this, is it done in a structured manner that allows that NGO to truly understand what the needs of the community are and what are the issues they're facing, so that when they do their programming, they are evidence-based, they are based on what their reality is, not the opinions or the passions or the dreams of founders or donors. The third is staff and volunteer management, and we've realized a lot of NGOs are completely volunteer-based. Some of them have a mix of volunteers and staff, and some of them are completely staff-based, and they have positions and they hire people to do their job. And so it's not just any either or. Our focus here is on both the staff and the volunteer and how you manage them. Do you have those systems in place? Do you treat them well? Do you build their capacity? Do you identify proper job descriptions and the governance and the operational procedures for registering your staff in the, for example, NSSF? Do you give them proper documentation at the Ministry of Labor and whatnot? And the sixth program, which is something I'm very passionate about, it's program and project management, which is ensuring that there are proper plans, proper procedures for implementing those projects. Because all of the above, if you're not able to put a proper plan and proper implementation of that project, you would have had beautiful policies, great strategy, the best team, great understanding of the community needs, but there's no actual impact on the ground. There's a lot of music, but there's no one's dancing. The seventh one is resources and assets management, and here we're focusing on the non-financial and non-HR resources and assets. It's the physical assets, it's the physical resources, it's other things that are within the organization to be properly managed, to be properly kept, inventories and things. And specifically when working in aid contexts, and there's a lot of different locations and movement of goods and services and items, it's critical for the NGO to keep track of where their items are, what are the services they're doing, where did all those packages or material or assets they have are being spent and how they're being used and utilized. The ninth is proposal writing and reporting, and a lot of NGOs depend on proposal writing to secure their funding and to keep on getting that grant after grant to grow and to develop their work. So do they have a structured approach? Do they properly identify those donors? Do they have a way of identifying what donors to apply for, what criteria do we look for, and how do we actually replicate what the donor is requesting with what we can deliver? And is it a proper match of community need, our capacity, and the donor's requirements to see if the way we are collaborating is the proper way? And the last but not least is communication and reporting, and we find that critical in the community in our community, in every community they are, for transparency, for communicating the impact that's being done, to share reports on not just the actual work they've done, but also the results, the analysis, the finances they're getting. So a mix of transparency and communicating and outreach with the different community members to ensure that every NGO has a structured and clear way of showcasing what it did and clearly stating the transparency policies that it abides by. So those are the 10 standards, and then they're broken down into 27 substandards with tens of criteria and required documents to ensure that what we're looking at is rigorous, clear, evidence-based, objective, and in a way that gives the confidence for the NGO that when we are doing their assessment for their certification, it's not just someone's opinion of what they're doing. It is a clear procedure that it allows them to better understand where they stand. So, some key benefits for doing that certification, for going through those whole 10 standards and applying for it. Number one is recognition for organizational and operational excellence. As we said, there are 10, and there's so many different substandards and criteria for them. If you really are up to it and you feel that you've reached those standards, then you definitely receive a good recognition. It's well-deserved. Credibility with donors, beneficiaries, and partners, because it shows where you're good at and it shows that you are really transparent and you're structured and you have a proper governance and strategy. Third, enhancing internal capacity for growth and sustainability. And our focus here is ensuring that there's internal capacities to continue growing, because if there's a proper structure, there is a proper growth and you can actually build on it. And a colleague and my director here always says, structure drives behavior. And so putting the right structure in place actually ensures that we are able to reach the results. Facilitating continuous improvement in the programming and identifying the needs and everything we do, ensuring that there's a process for it. And this pushes you towards identifying and understanding how to do that. And the last one is becoming part of an exclusive network of really high achieving NGOs that are in Lebanon, and hopefully as we expand into the region, that are really doing their best for their communities and they're working at optimal standards. So what's the process? It's not a very complicated process. First, we have organizations that apply or that are interested, attend an awareness workshop that will tell them a little bit more about how the details are, what are the documentation and the application is. Then we share with them a self-assessment application that they have to fill. This is a list of questions they answer and some documents they provide. We take that, we review it. There's an internal team of experts and a committee that reviews it. We share our feedback with the NGO to tell them, these are our preliminary findings. Please work on them as we prepare for a on-site visit, where the NGO hosts us for an on-site visit to actually assess from different angles, different things that they've submitted and worked on. Based on the two aforementioned work, the self-assessment work and the site visit, we will deliver a recommendation, or the NGOs would receive a recommendation and a certification of their work. Now, it's notable to say that certification is awarded to those that fulfill the certification criteria standards, and there's a lot of them. We're putting certain benchmarks to say anything below that grade, you don't, there needs to be further work. Above that, you're meeting your criteria. And when you get certified, it's a 2-year certification. So it lasts for just 2 years, which is usually the average age of an election or a cycle of a certain board of an NGO. Sometimes they have it a bit less, sometimes they're more, but on average, there's a big part of them that are around 2 years. And so this gives enough time to say, we have it for a period of time, but then there's enough period to actually work and keep on developing it for the coming 2 years. And last but not least, when we certify an NGO, there's two things that we provide. A score, which shows where we stand, and at the same level, a certification, which is one of 3 levels of certification that shows at what level they are operating and how advanced they are in meeting those standards. The second service. So that's the certification. That's all about certification. The second service is what we want to be focusing on, building that community. It's not about just having NGOs apply and they get certified and whatnot. We really want to build a community for the NGO sector. It's not just having NGOs or NGO representatives. It's volunteers, it's experts, it's donors and donor agencies, it's researchers, everyone who is interested and involved in the NGO sector or who would like to be involved in it, to learn from the different activities, to identify what are the things that they can do and how can they improve their work. This is the place that we would like to have everyone in. As a convening platform, we're organizing different places to engage NGOs in face-to-face activities and on virtual types of engagements. And what we'd like to do is not just events like a talk, but also workshops, but maybe forums, discussion panels, sharing success stories, or TEDx-like style of sharing successes and concerns, having the NGOs come together and share what are the key concerns or challenges they're facing, or what are the key successes and how we can replicate and scale that. So instead of everyone reinventing the wheel every time we need to reach out to a community, let's collaborate, let's build together. Let's put our hands together and actually build together, not rather than compete on every grant, on every community, on every beneficiary that we can reach out to. So I'll stop right here and I'll give the mic to my colleague Noor, who will tell you about the other 2 services.
Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. So I'll be carrying on the discussion about the NGOi services with the third service, that is the training and capacity building. What do we offer as NGOi in training and capacity building? We know that a lot of NGOs invest in skills development and training of their staff, and therefore we gathered a team of experts to see what are the topics that may be of interest to the NGOs and their staff. And these topics were mapped under 3 or 4 certificates, let's say. The offerings of the NGOi are composed of courses, certificates, diploma, and a comprehensive development program. So each course under the NGOi training and capacity building offerings is constituted of 32 hours. Each certificate is constituted of 4 courses, as we will see in the next slide. And the diploma is a mix and match of 8 courses that anyone can choose from any of these diplomas. The Comprehensive Development Program, there's a slide that explains further about it, but it's a program for the NGOs who wish to know more about the 10 standards of the organizational certification that Afif mentioned previously. So these NGOs would choose to get enrolled or send the staff to get enrolled in this development program to learn more how to actually implement operationally these standards and be able to meet the requirement of the organizational certification. So for the set of 4 certificates that NGOi is offering, we have different topics under the certificates. You have a certificate in strategic management, in operations management, in fundraising and proposal writing, as well as in communication and reporting strategies. So as you can see, under each of these certificates, we have 4 courses. So the certificate would be a total of 4 courses that can be attended. A person can choose from the beginning to take a certain certificate and then would have to attend the 4 courses of the certificate, or may choose to take the courses on a slow pace and then will come and say that I took these 4 courses and I know that these 4 courses will make together this certificate, and then this person would obtain thus this certificate. So the NGO Leadership and Management Diploma, as we said, the Management Diploma is a mix and match of 8 courses. Any person can choose to take any 8 courses of the following ones displayed here, and will thus obtain a diploma in NGO Leadership and Management. And I highly encourage everyone who is interested in a specific course in this set of courses or a specific certificate to visit the information booth during the networking reception to indicate on the application of interest what courses you are interested in or what certificates you are interested in. As for the Comprehensive Development Program, so as mentioned before, it is basically for NGOs and NGO staff member who would like to attend this program to be able to understand how to actually implement the different criteria and the different standards that we are adopting in the organization certification. And this would thus aid and support the NGO to be able to meet the different standards of the organizational certification. The 4th service of the NGOi is the Knowledge Resource Center. The Knowledge Resource Center is basically the go-to place for all members of the NGOs and other individuals who are actually searching for a place to find reliable material that is related to NGOs. So we all, I know as a researcher basically, that we suffer to find places or platforms to find reliable materials. We have done the job for you, and we have gathered all the reliable material that is related to NGOs and NGOs' work, such as guides, articles, reports, statistics, under one umbrella that is the Knowledge Resource Center. Also in the Knowledge Resource Center, we were able to present a platform tab where you can choose to enter into the portals tab, and you can choose different portals that have also reliable material about NGOs, in addition to statistics, articles, etc. The Knowledge Resource Center has a very user-friendly filtering engine, so you can browse in it in a very user-friendly way. You can select to filter by type of the published material, or by the theme, or by the language, etc. An important thing to mention that individuals and NGOs can choose to be members of the NGOi. So the NGO initiative is open to members, and as Afif mentioned earlier, we are aiming at the end of the day to create a network of NGOs and of members that belong to the NGOs under this NGO initiative. And as you can see, members can benefit from a set of membership benefits, and such as the discounts on the training and capacity building. And this discount is valid for individuals and for staff that belong to NGOs who are members of the NGO initiative. Also, among the benefits of the membership is the priority registration. For example, if a course capacity is 10 people and we have 16 people interested in that course, but 6 of these people are members of the NGO initiative, for sure that we are going to consider these 6 people to attend this course, and then we are going to start with the people who are not members of the NGO initiative. Also, in the Knowledge Resource Center, there are going to be a section that is that can be accessed only by members, and this section includes resources that were developed by the team of experts that worked on the different standards of the organization certification. And by that, I take the chance to thank all the experts that work with us to develop the different standards of the organization certification. Also, we have a benefit that might be of interest to a lot of NGOs, and that is the facilitated hosting of co-organized events at AUB. So for example, as Afif stated, if I am an NGO and I had implemented a project in Bika and it was a really a success story, and I'd like to share that story with other NGOs, then I might approach the NGOi to host an event at AUB and do a co-organized event to invite other NGOs to listen to the success stories and share lessons learned from that project. And the final benefit of the membership is the attendance of members-only events that are going to be organized as part of the convening platform. Of course, not all the events are going to be only for members, but some of the events will be restricted for the members. For example, events with donors or with potential funding agencies. For the membership, so the price of individual membership is going to be $120 for a year of membership, and for the organizational membership, it's going to be $400 per year. For the organizational membership, so as mentioned before, the 20% discount on capacity building, it's going to be applied up to 5 individuals of the same NGO. And with that, I'll be concluding the NGOi services overview session, and I really encourage everyone to pass by the information booth to register your interest in specific courses, membership, certificates, and other services of the NGOi. Thank you so much for attending this session, and we hope you enjoyed it.